All right, good evening, everyone. This is Mr. Craig, if you couldn't tell. So let's take a quick review of what we did in class today. So the first thing we want to do is we want to review the 3 steps for the product rule. The first thing we do always is multiply, and I'm going to abbreviate, our coefficients. The second thing we want to do is keep our base or bases. And the third thing we want to do is add our exponents. Now, if we look at problem number 1, the first thing again we want to do is multiply our coefficients. So, x, we don't have any coefficients here, so we're good there. The second thing we want to do is keep our base, which is the only base we have, is x. And then the third thing we want to do is add our coefficients. So when we add 2 plus 3, we get x to the 5th power. Okay, let's look at problem number 2. Again, the same thing. The first thing we want to do again up here, multiply our coefficients. Remember, a coefficient is a number. So when we multiply 3 times 2, we get 6. Second thing we want to do again, look at our base. Our only base is x. And then the third thing we want to do is add our exponents. So on this problem, we get 6x to the 5th power. Alright, our final problem, number 3. Again, we want to start at the top, multiply our coefficients. This one's a little more difficult, but it's just simple multiplication. 3 times 4 is 12, times 2 is 24. The second thing we do, again, is keep our base. Now in this situation, we actually have 2 bases. We have an x and a y. And then the final thing we want to do is go down and add the exponents. So on our exponents, we have 2 x's to the 1st power, so we just want to remember that that's x to the 1st power. So we add 1 plus 1 and we get 2. So we have x to the 2nd. We only have 1 base of y, so we have the number 2. So with that one we end up with 24 x to the 2nd power, y to the 2nd power.
Okay guys, so just a couple things before we move on to the next step is make sure that you have all 3 of the steps for product rule on the right side of your paper up by the review, and make sure that you have written that is for the product rule, because when we start quotient rule, our steps are going to change a little bit. Okay, so the next thing on your sheet is going to be for you to write down today's learning target. So go ahead and take a second and write down the learning target. It says, I can use the quotient rule to simplify expressions. I can use the quotient rule to simplify expressions. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that. Alright, one thing we need to do is we also need to review vocabulary. So let me quit messing with stuff here and get a pen. So our vocabulary, we have several words today, and the first 2 should be a review from last year. So numerator, go ahead and write down what a numerator is, and actually go ahead and pause the video and write down what you know about the first 2 words. So the numerator is the top of a fraction. So an example, if I had 2 over 4, 2 would be my numerator. And then for the denominator, that's going to be the bottom of a fraction. So in that example that I just gave you, the 4 would be the denominator. And then quotient. Quotient might actually be a new one for you. Quotient is going to be the solution to a division problem. The solution to a division problem. So go ahead and take a second and get those written down. Okay, so today we're going to focus on the quotient rule. So what I want to do first is I want to show you what it looks like before you start doing problems. Okay, so if you look at what I have on the paper, I have 2 yellow cubes over another yellow cube. So what I want to do is I want to figure out a way to make this as simple as possible. So if I look at something like, let's say 2 over 2, so I'll do 2 over 2, we know that 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1, because we know that anything divided by itself is 1. So what I can do with my cubes is I can say, all right, well I have 1 cube over another cube, so that will be equal to 1. So I can take those away. And all I'm left with is 1 cube in the denominator, or I'm sorry, in the numerator. So then my solution here would just be 1 yellow cube. All right, so let me show you another one. If I had 3 yellow cubes in the numerator and 1 in the denominator, I could simplify that as well. So I can say, all right, I've got 1 yellow cube over 1 yellow cube, so that's equal to 1. So I can take that away, and then I'm left with 2 yellow cubes. And then that would be my solution. And one more. If I start with 3 yellow cubes in the numerator and 2 in the denominator, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away pairs of cubes. Okay, so I'll take 1 from the numerator and 1 from the denominator because I know that is 1. I'll take another from the numerator and another from the denominator because I know that is 1. And I'm left with 1 yellow cube in the numerator. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to show you how that looks on paper.
Okay, so let's look at another way of using the quotient rule. So if we take x to the 3rd power over x to the 2nd power. X to the 3rd power is the same as x times x times x. X to the 2nd power is the same as x times x. And just like what Miss Riley explained as far as taking the cubes away, we can just circle pairs of x's and we're left with x. Okay, let's look at one more. So let's take x to the 5th power over x to the 3rd power. X to the 5th power is the same as x times x times x times x over x to the 3rd power, which is the same as x times x times x. And again, you can circle the pairs or you can just simply draw a line through them if you want to save time. So what we're left with is x to the 2nd power. Okay, using those same examples, let's look at another way of doing this. So we have x to the 3rd power over x to the 2nd. We already know that x times x is the same as x to the 3rd power, and that x times x is the same as x to the 2nd power. We know that we can simplify this by just making pairs, and we're left with x. Now, here's the other way of doing it. Using the quotient rule, basically what we do is subtract the exponents. So if we take 3 minus 2, we get x to the 1st power. Everyone see that? All right, let's move on to the other problem that we used. X to the 5th power over x to the 3rd power. Again, we know that x times x times x times x is x to the 5th. X times x times x is x to the 3rd. We eliminate, we simplify down, and we're left with x to the 2nd power. And again, using the quotient rule, we just subtract our exponents. So 5 minus 3 leaves us with x to the 2nd power. The same as in this example.
Okay guys, look at your worksheet. At the bottom there's 4 problems for you to try on your own. You can do them any way you would like to. I would like to see you try to do it with either drawing cubes or drawing out all the x's. And then I'd also like for you to try using the quotient rule that Mr. Craig showed you in the last slide, where you subtract the exponents.